So looking out through that window, I just saw this ember the size of probably my hand falling into the backyard, and that was it. And there's just like ash in my eyes, and it's hard. It's getting harder to see. And it genuinely felt warm, and we had to really sort of take it seriously.
Yeah.
And my neighbor tells me, look, you got a flat tire.
Oh my goodness.
I had to get it out of there. My dad just said, drive slowly, we'll caravan down. Getting out of there is a praise because our whole family's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't without cost. There's a lot that I left thinking, it's just too much right now.
You didn't seriously think your house was going to burn down?
Not at all.
What's going on, guys? Ginger and Jeremy here, and we're back for another episode. And we are hitting a topic today that is very close to home for us here in Los Angeles because, as many of you know, we've been dealing with the wildfires that have been raging.
Yeah, it's been so tragic just to see what all's taken place all across LA. So many have been affected by these fires, and I feel like they just keep popping up. And so we have another family staying with us right now who had to evacuate last night for fires. And it's just something that I think has made national news. And yeah, our hearts are just with everyone who has been affected. And that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, it's been one of the greatest natural disasters. I guess they calling it like an urban natural disaster because of how many people. They said it's even worse than the Chicago fire. It's just affecting so many people. And to give you a little bit of an insight into like the mindset here, we have these Santa Ana winds, they're called, and they start blowing, and you're used to it. They're like seasonal. At different times, they're more than others. But everyone's on edge because as these winds start blowing 80, 90 miles an hour at times, it's often at night and you hear the trees whistling outside, sometimes hitting your house. And now everyone realizes just one spark lights a fire, however it starts, and it could take out neighborhoods. And so people are on edge because of that. And yeah, it's been devastating, honestly, here in Los Angeles. We've never seen anything like it. And we've only been in Los Angeles about 5.5 years, but people who've been born and raised here for generations have said this is the worst they've ever experienced. And so today, actually, on the podcast, we invited our dear friend, Dean McMahon, to be with us because Dean, and we're going to get into his story and allow him to share. Dean is a sweet guy. He goes to our church. He's involved in our Bible study, and they lost everything. Dean and his family lost their home and probably 95% of everything they owned just a couple of weeks ago in this fire. So we wanted to have Dean on to share his story, how he's processing this, and also where he finds hope in this whole thing. So Dino, welcome.
Welcome.
Guys, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So
yeah, I'm glad to have you. Okay, take us to the moment because I want to go back to the start and go through what you've been experiencing, how you're processing that. But there's a moment when you woke up and it was 2 a.m. and you saw embers from the fire landing in your backyard, and you were in Altadena, so it's the Eaton fire.
Yeah.
What was that moment like?
Even when I think back to it now, I think it's surreal. It's really, my mom was in the living room, kind of pacing the floor, gathering some things, and my dad was trying to sleep still, and I was doing the same thing in my room because you're just sitting, and I'm sure even people now are facing it as these fires continue. Even last night, just praying over those people that might be experiencing this worry that I had felt at that time, which is just knowing like, man, I don't know what to do. Because you're going through a mixed emotion of, do I stay? Do I hit the hay and then work tomorrow morning? Or do I start packing? What do I pack if I really, you have to ask that question, like, what do I need? What do I want? And so looking out that window was the biggest take action moment, call to action moment, because it was the last one left, really. Because the whole time our family has lived in Altadena, we've had fires on that hill for years. And, but we had never experienced or thought or expected the kind of winds that were coming. And, up to 90 miles per hour, like you said. And so looking out the backyard through that window, I just saw this ember the size of probably my hand, at least in my head. It was the size of my hand falling into the backyard. And that was it. Like I had the evac warning on my phone already, and I didn't want to leave yet. but it was the Lord's own word to just start packing and go. So I immediately rushed to my dad's room and got him up, started to just ask him like, hey, like grab as much as you can. We got to move. My mom was already, flashlights ready to go. We had this huge branch that fell actually just behind my mom's truck where we were packing things.
Oh my goodness.
From our tree we've had in the front yard for all of our lives.
Oh, wow.
And so we tossed that to the side onto the part of the porch, I guess, and really sort of take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because our neighbors were knocking. I had to go make sure. We have a neighbor of ours across the street, maybe 80 years old or a little older. And thank God he got out. He was one of the stubborn kind and liked to stay home. But he was out just before us even. So I'm grateful that he was gone. But it became really real. And we had to think of ways to just gather whatever we could. And you are pushed to the necessity of answering that question of what to get. And we got a lot of the sentimentals and those important things that we know are just not replaceable, like they say. And the Lord was just working a trial that we had never seen before. And yet I think he was preparing us though in his own right. At some point I got to my car and started packing it. I figured out, I took all my whole hamper and was like, well, hopefully I wore things I liked,
Yeah.
Tossed that in the back of there. And my neighbor tells me, look, you got a flat tire. So I was like, oh my gosh, like what? I changed.
And this is at 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m. Yeah, it's like 2:30 or something at that point. And there's just like ash in my eyes and it's hard. It's getting harder to see. And it genuinely felt warm, like just a weird like humidity almost. But so I just realized, man, the irony is that morning I changed my back two tires, went out with my friend Aiden to hang. And the guy was telling me at the tire center, okay, like these front ones are fine. You got time. But then all of a sudden, like that front one had a nail in it. And so I just like, okay, I need to take my car. I had to get it out of there. My dad just said, drive slowly, we'll caravan down. And I could show you a photo later. It's just the tire was completely gone at that point. I'm surprised it didn't actually mess with the wheel, but yeah.
So everything became real in that moment. So let's zoom backwards because one of the things that people who don't live in Los Angeles maybe can't relate to is like, we don't live in Oklahoma, so we don't know what it's like to live in Tornado Alley, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they have seasonal tornadoes or hurricanes and in Florida, right? So if you don't live in Florida, you don't understand what it is to, bunker down for a hurricane. It's hurricane season. You're like, what? Well, in California, we have fires. And so take us into the mindset of an Angelino. You've lived in Altadena your whole life, and you just kind of casually said, yeah, we have fires on that hill all the time. What is that typically like to the point where, and what you just said was it's 2:30 in the morning, you're seeing embers in your yard and you're going, oh, I guess we should pack. Like, I guess we should go. And then your neighbor going, no, I'm not going. Nobody expected that. What did they expect? Like, what's typical in LA as an LA resident?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've faced a ton of fires in the past from all throughout my youth too. So that there's something about when you're younger and you just face that stuff that it just becomes common and you just think, okay, it's going to get taken care of. That's why even when it started further on the other side of Eaton, I just knew like that place has burned tons of times. There used to be a place where you do cliff jumping at, that burn is gone, and you think of it in that way where it's the story from someone else that has experienced it and you never let it really get to your own head and heart like, oh, I'm that guy telling it.
All right, we're going to take a break from this episode to talk about how you can help with those who have been affected by these fires. And so first and foremost, you can help Dean and his family. So we have a GoFundMe link here. It's for the McMahon family, and you can click on that link to help give to them. And also, our church has a fire fund. There have been at least 10 families who have lost their homes within our own church from Grace Church. And so you can click on the link there to help them. And then there's another resource that Jeremy's going to tell you about where you can help out.
Yeah, there's lacity.gov. There are so many ways to give and avenues to give because people have been displaced. They've lost their clothes. They need food. They need money. They need places to stay. I mean, there's no end to the need, really. And so we'll link to lacity.gov, and that will give a lot of options for where you can give. And I'll just say this, what you might think is a little or insignificant right now is going a very long way.
Yeah.
Some people got out just with their lives. Others were able to grab, like Dean, a few handfuls of clothes. And there's so many people that left, and as they're leaving and unable to go back are thinking, oh, I should have grabbed this or that. And so they're without resources. So if you can give whatever you're able, it will go a long, long way to helping. Okay, back to the episode with Dean.
In that moment too, you're also sleep deprived. It's 2:30 in the morning. And so it's probably even harder to process because you're not able to make maybe the same decision you would because you wake up to it. And so that would be so terrifying to be in that place. And then on top of it, right? Like thinking about, okay, I have a flat tire. To change the flat tire, there's wind, there's ash. Like you said, it's not a place you can just stop and do that.
Yeah.
And then getting down the hill, that's another thing too. Like in Altadena, you guys, your house sat up a little bit further on the hill. So you have to get out before the roads are closed off.
Yeah.
And so how was that drive down the mountain at that point?
Yeah, that's when it began to feel more like a movie, because you had familiarities in terms of your home and just, like you said, the exhaustion kind of getting to a place where you just have to do the next thing. But heading down was wild because you see other cars needing to do the same thing. You see trees on the road, power lines as well. Thank God they shut off all the electrical.
Oh.
But it really began to start to feel like something from out of TV. So getting to the base of that hill was something that I guess later on, because it didn't sink in yet,
right,
just was awakening, and I think getting out of there is a praise because our whole family's fine. But yeah, it wasn't without cost.
So take us start at the beginning, I guess, of when these fires started. When did you first get alerted to the Eaton fire? Because I think the Pacific Palisades fire began before the Eaton fire. When did you find out about that? When did you download Watch Duty? You got to talk about that app because I think everyone in Los Angeles has downloaded Watch Duty app, which shows us all the fires and gives us evac alerts. And then just walk us through from when you first heard about it to you're evacuating, like how long was that? And give us the journey. And also what was going on in your mind? Because there was something where I said this, I don't remember the exact day that the Palisades fire started, but when we had the Santa Ana winds up here, it was like the night before, I remember laying in bed and hearing branches hitting our windows and going, I hope nothing catches fire because this is going to spread. I think it was the next night it did.
Yes.
So talk about when you first heard about it and kind of walk us through the...
Yeah, I mean, wow. There was I think the step-by-step was really it started with expectation. And that was, this is normal. And we've seen it before. I remember specifically toward about 7 p.m. or so, I got back home and my mom was the one who brought it up to my attention. And I said, okay, maybe, this is close by. I should just check in terms of its whereabouts. And I looked up the exact distance, because that's a drive I was familiar with, going down Altadena Drive, heading further east. And it was about I don't know how many, maybe 17 miles or so away. And at the time, like you said, getting on Watch Duty, you download that app. I remember it was just before I had exercised or something that night, and then was getting ready for the shower, and I grabbed the app and see, okay, wow, this is, the exact acreage or whatever that it's at. And it grew so quick, but that still didn't really get to my head yet in terms of okay, it's going to keep growing to where we're at. So the process was really just, okay, this is not out of the norm. And my mom is just kind of overthinking a little bit too much, or trying to be protective as she should be, as per usual, in terms of just her kind of preparation she had. But it made me aware, but I was not aware of myself yet, what I should have been doing.
I got to just say something there, because during this, and actually it was when I talked to you a few days after the fire, you were telling me about your mom and her response and how you were kind of lackadaisical, kind of Mom, chill. I don't know if you said that to her, but your mindset was like, man, she's like getting all prepared. And she went into like, okay, we're going to have to flee mode. What are we going to get? And you were like, it's not a big deal. I've seen that instinct in Ginger. I think it's a maternal thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know the science behind it. So maybe somebody listening does, but there's something maternal where the mom says, we're locking in.
Yeah.
I'm going to protect this family. It's kind of like they say for a woman who's expecting, she goes into this nesting phase, like a bird in the nest saying, okay, I'm going to prepare for these little eggs to be. And there's something where just naturally the mother's like, I need to prepare. I need to keep this place safe. And it seemed like with this fire, at least what you were telling me with your mother and things I've seen even in Ginger, where there are times where I'm like, Ginger, it's not a big deal. Like, it's fine. And there's an instinct where she's going, no, it is. We need to be prepared. And then it's like always proven right. So I wonder about that because that struck me because your mom
For sure.
locked in.
She was thinking that way before you guys were.
Yeah.
You and your dad.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. But I think that also, like you said, it's something where when the fires pop up, it does feel, even though we've only been here for 5.5 years now. And when you see like, oh, a fire popped up, you initially think, oh, it's fine. Like, it's far enough away. Everything's good. But then for that to come in just so quickly spread, and for the lack of help that was there when all these fires started, that was the other thing that was just so surprising, because we think, oh, we're going to have the resources. We live in America. We have everything we need, and it's all a given. Like, we take it for granted that we have everything, that, we have the water, we have the hands, the labor, we have the aircraft. But then when it doesn't go that way, the shock of that, I imagine, is still setting in, because it is all so fresh. Everything that has transpired, which we're going to get into. I mean, I want to ask you about that. Like, when you got settled, where did you go? Did you have a place where you guys, were able to get down the mountain, go to a place where you were able to just start to process, okay, what just happened? And is our house going to be okay?
Yeah, like, where
was
did
there
you
any
go?
thought in your mind at that point? Like, okay, did you think your house might still make it even after you left?
Okay, another quick break to this episode, but it's an important one. If you are in an area affected often by wildfires, if you have a swimming pool, listen up. Go to fightfirefirst.com. Firefighter 1 is a home defense system for people who have swimming pools to fight fires. 80% of homes that are consumed by fires start with tiny little fires on their property. And if you have this hose, you basically become your own firefighter.
Yeah, it's really an incredible system. And their mission is to help you protect your home or property with the water resources that you already have available. And Firefighter 1 is a simple firefighting system. It's designed to provide others with quick and easy access to pool water through the pool pump to create a defensible space or help to fight a fire. And you simply connect the Firefighter 1 to a pool pump to extract and spray valuable pool water 40 plus feet at a rate of 100 plus GPM.
Yeah, so you're dousing your home with pool water, and it really is effective. And honestly, it gives peace of mind. So not only have we bought one, a bunch of our friends have bought one, because in this time, everybody's on edge. And we recognize that even the smallest spark can start something huge. So go to Fight Fire First. We'll have the link here. We have a 10% off code. Use code Water Access and then the number 10. That's Water Access 10. You'll get 10% off of your order. And here's something that's really amazing. So we got in touch with the owners of Firefighter 1. They are going to give 10% of all the proceeds from our listeners who purchased this equipment to help Dean and his family rebuild their home. So not only are you helping give back, you're protecting your family, you're protecting your home. All of their rates for their products are going to go up mid-February. So you want to take advantage of this now.
Yeah.
And so check it out, fightfirefirst.com. And I think it'll give you a lot of peace of mind as it has for us. All right, back to the episode with Dean.
Yeah, I think that's where, as I spoke of earlier, expectation moved toward like hopefulness really, because for us, it was really, like a man plans his way and the Lord directs his step. Like we had planned so differently for our lives, so differently. And we can get into that in a moment. But I think the next move was really just, okay, we had to get my car somewhere where it was out of the fire from what we knew. And so I went back to that same Firestone tire center to drop it off and just hopefully wait for it to get changed so I can have a vehicle again. Soon after that, we went to a hotel somewhere in Glendale. And the moment we walk in at 3-something, the guy's sitting there. No calls were being answered. The guy's sitting there and just says, "We've been booked since 9 p.m." So everyone who did have the, awareness to escape sooner, just really beat us to it. So we kind of sat for a moment and realized, you never want to do this really. And yet it came to us that was like, okay, we're going to call some dear close friends. We've known this family for our entire lives, the Troy family, and they were gracious to hold us up for that whole night and on to the next 2 days. So like 4-something, we arrive and they just took such good care of us. And, and then the story changes a little bit more from there and opens the next layer. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Wow, that's crazy. I think there's so much that goes into that, though, of like just seeing the body of Christ, people that, want to reach out to you in that moment. But then also at the same time, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, well, what has taken place? What have we left behind? What is there? What's happening? Because I think at that point, there's a certain level of knowing where the fires have hit. You can see maybe on the Watch Duty app, but you don't know for sure. Because even those apps are not it's harder to tell on the maps. They're not specific as to what's happening.
Were you racing through your mind like, oh, I left this. Oh, I should have taken that. Oh, why didn't I grab that?
Yeah, totally. There are a lot of those moments of like, and they still happen. That's what's weird because it's stretched.
How many days has it been?
I mean, well, it was the 8th, right? So I don't know how long from then. I honestly haven't been counting.
Yeah.
A couple weeks, 2 weeks, 3, 2.5, I don't know. But I think like from that drive specifically out of the hotel where we tried to stop in and then on the way to our family friends, it was, just realizing a lot of the stuff that was in my room and I've been telling people, you guys probably know, like I've been telling people this, if it gets to the point where you get into warning zone, start packing. And if it's to the point where you see a cloud close by and you're in the evac zone, then like, don't let the thought that you're going to have to put that back later stop you from taking it now. Cause that was really it. That was, and we go into the whole discussion about what do you regret and should you and all that. But, there's a lot that I left thinking, it's just too much right now. I've got enough bags to have to
You didn't
take out.
seriously think your house was going to burn down?
Not at all. We knew the next morning, like the official Watch Duty actually covered that land at that point where it was red and it was, the specific color they use isn't just the evac order, but the this bright red color that really did show, okay, Farnsworth section, that whole area has been taken. So, and it went a little bit further than that too. So I think that was the big breaking point of the news.
I remember you sending in the group chat video of going back to your house because one of the things that was happening was looters were going in, which is just speaks to the depravity of people's hearts that in the moment of the greatest need, people are going in to take advantage for themselves. And pretty soon the police, National Guard shut down those areas where they could enter.
Yeah.
But before that happened, you went back.
Yeah.
So talk about going back into that zone and the impact of seeing everything you owned. And we'll put up some of the footage here that you took.
Sure.
Of going back so people who are watching can see. But
yeah, so that next morning, I caught a couple of Z's. I think it was
where'd you end up staying?
We stayed at the Troy family.
That's right.
We stayed at the Troy family house and they're up in Tahunga. So far enough out of the way from the danger zone, and slept there for those few hours, got up to just eat something, just had to. And that's where we had figured it all out. Hopped on a few phone calls with a friend of mine, Jack, Josiah, and just kind of breaking that news slowly. And that's when I messaged the group about, thinking, okay, I think our home is gone. But my dad and I had to see it, in every other way, we tried to live by faith, but we had to see it with our own eyes.
Yes.
In this instance. So we had to go back. And my mom stayed with the Troy family, and we went to drive back into town. And it was just strange. Your own neighborhood getting blocked off and police stopping you from coming back into your own, what you've known your whole life for the past almost 23 years of my life. Because I grew up there at that house. And so we went this back route to the top of the mountain, and it really is just a war zone. I mean, you never really understand it till you see it. And what's wild is that you don't really know what you're looking at, because you get to have perspective on a whole new level. And I showed us the different groups, like you can see super far because there's no house blocking your view.
And no trees. The beautiful thing about Altadena was that it had it was just naturally absolutely gorgeous, that entire area. Mature trees, super tall, towering above your home. It was in the setting of like this quiet neighborhood where you could tell a lot of people had probably just been there for a very long time, poured their lives and investment into their homes, made it their own. And even your home was just so beautiful. Like the touches that, your parents put on it, the hosting that they had there, all the memories, you growing up there. And for you to walk back into that place, to drive back in there, barely making it in, like, where are we? Like that for me, like when I saw that video, I was like hit. It hit me because I was like, wow, like to have all of your childhood memories there and then have that like taken away from you is just so unthinkable. And so when you drove back up, were you able to get back into the street, or did you have to walk where your home was? It was like so interesting to see, like they were setting up, more of a blockage at the time. And we went up to the back Santa Anita and turned our corner, and we had to park just before this one power line was like coming around our corner on our street, on our main street, Pinal Street. And, that's where it does get hard to think back, because you see these chimneys as the gravestones to these houses, because they're the only thing left. And it felt so upside down in that sense of like, okay, these are the palm trees that have always been there my whole life. And that same exact tree that, was in our front yard, it really was difficult, but it showed the power of God, because we walked up to our own lot and seeing my driveway and that front tree, just because of the wind being blown a certain direction, but because of the fire and the wind being scorched in that same positioning, like it was just like curved in all these weird ways. And just, I don't know, God is powerful and did powerful things that day. Hard things, but yeah. So processing that was difficult, but I was grateful to experience it with my dad and have to, and just to do that together was important, I think, for us. Yeah.
So
what did you find?
Yeah, there was not much. Not much. I mean, you can begin to carve out different parts of where things were and how things, I guess, settled after the whole fire. But I recall walking to the back of the garage area, and it was just below my feet, and it's like my boots are getting covered in ash, but there was this little piece of paper, and I actually have it here.
Wow.
I just stashed it away inside of this little bag, but it's kind of breaking apart. But I don't know exactly what book this came from. We had a slew of them in our little library, but I think it's a piece of a commentary of some kind that somehow got just preserved in the weirdest way. Like, I don't know, the Lord just set it there beneath my feet, and I quite literally look down and see it there. But that was really what, and I'll tell you why in a second, but it was the point at which I just knew that that was God's stamp of his work. As painful as it is, you just see like there's nothing else that could have done this. There's no one else that could have done this. And there's a lot of people willing to place blame in this place or that, but I don't want to take God off his throne. He is the one who worked this out in his sovereign will. And there's a certain passage that reminded me of him, and this was what was on this little piece of paper as I look at it. It's Luke 14:28-32. And I got to share this with our Bible study, but the only words that are there now is words quoted from that passage, and it's count the cost. Just to count the cost of discipleship is that specific passage. And it took me somewhere else to really sit and think about that, because you experience a lot in I don't know, like a part of our church and part of growing up in the church has always been like, you have it preached to you and you have it handed to you. And the way I put it is like, you don't have to exegete this passage. I'm experiencing it. And that's where we're at, is like, you know, it's difficult, but it's a high cost, a high price to pay, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I mean, one of the biggest things I've realized is that the gospel is enough. The gospel is enough. The person and work of Jesus is enough for those who have lost all that so quickly. Because it is difficult to go down Lake Avenue, where I grew up, and see not only your house and home, but the places you used to spend time with friends, and the coffee shop that you'd go to, and that one breakfast place that you always loved, it's gone. And it's difficult, but there's some worthwhile in all of it. And these lessons, I wouldn't give up.
One of the things that's been remarkable about just talking to you these last couple of weeks, because it is so fresh, it's still processing, like it's still settling. But the verse that comes to my mind when I think of you, Dean, is 1 Peter 3:15, which is, honor in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, being prepared to give a reason for the hope that is within you with gentleness and respect. And when people look at the Christian and they say, hey, how do you have hope? The Christian should have a response and say, oh, I can give you a reason for that hope. But it's in moments like this when people have lost every known earthly treasure. And to look at you, to look at your family who have been so exemplary through this, and to say, wait a second, he hasn't lost his hope. Like he lost, his wardrobe, and he lost childhood memories that were preserved, but he hasn't lost his hope. What is the reason for that hope? And you just said Christ is enough. But to see displayed in you like this, like deep-seated joy amidst the tears, like a deep-seated confidence amidst the uprootedness of walking into a hotel in Glendale at 3 a.m. and them saying, sorry guys, there's no room in the inn. And you're just like with your little stuff, with a car with a flat tire going, where do we go? And yet there's a deep-seated confidence and a security there. What's the reason for the hope that is within you?
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing more and nothing less than exactly that, is Christ Jesus on that cross for me at Calvary. It's seeing the passages of Scripture come alive more than they ever have before in my life. And they've always been that way. I've just finally come to recognize it. I think that's it. This whole thing is that wild and extreme and explosive, literally explosive reminder that I'm just passing through, that we're just sojourners, and there is a Savior, Christ, who has gone before us. And it was something my dad had brought up. And this is where I begin to see Christ more closely as well. And the people that you, I guess, are a part of in the church family. My dad, first and foremost, has been a rock for my whole life. And the immediate feeling for him of all people, and you could probably understand this in some extent, if this were all to go down in flames, like that provider and protector father title feels like it burns up in the ash as well. But there's something more in that Christ has shown my dad who his father is, and that he is his provider and protector, that he is the good shepherd, and that his work is finished. And I think my dad brought up Isaiah 43, like the very first day after all this, you know, and that's it, right? Where it's like, where does someone go after that? Where, you know, if my home in the physical sense is gone, what else do I have? And that's our home is with Christ. And my dad read that 43:1, where it's just like those words, like, you are mine. And you know, that passage continues on, verse 3, 4, 5, like specifically pointing out, this is why the scripture is sufficient, because it covers all this ground, pointing out the way that, you know, through natural disaster of any kind, whether it's water or fire, it says that you will not be burned. You will not, you know, you could walk through it and the Lord will protect you in it. And he did exactly that for us.
Yeah, I think of Psalm 73, where the psalmist is looking at the agony of his life that he's enduring, and he's wrestling with God, saying, you know, why do the wicked prosper? And here I'm suffering. And then he says, when I thought how to discern these things, I entered the sanctuary of the Lord, then I discerned their end. And he realizes walking with God is everything he needs. And in a really beautiful, poetic way, he says, speaking to God, whom have I in heaven but you? What on earth do I desire besides you? My heart and my flesh may fail, but God is the rock of my heart and my portion forever. And for you, as you and your family are walking through this, I've just seen that for the McMahons, the Lord is their portion. And so, yeah, you've lost so much. And yet the Dean that I saw the Thursday night before the fire was the same Dean I saw a couple of Thursdays after the fire, with the same joy, the same hope, the same trust in Jesus. Not once did you vocalize, you know, why did God put us through this? Like a deep-seated trust in the Lord. And so that's a beautiful thing to see, because oftentimes faith can feel like theory, right? Like we read these passages about a man like Job who loses everything, and we say, Lord, if I was in that situation, I'd pray that I would have that same response. But you haven't lived through it. And then you live through it in a moment when it's the cancer diagnosis, or it's the Watch Duty app alerting you that you've lost everything and your faith is tried. And it's in those moments that your faith is verified, because it's established as real. Because looking at your life, it's like, well, for Dean to say that Christ is his all isn't just theory, because Dean only has Christ right now, and it's enough for him, you know? And that's the beautiful reality of the Christian. So that's been an encouragement to us. I know you're being ministered to a lot by a lot of people, but you're also ministering, you and your family are ministering back to a lot of people in how you're enduring that.
Yeah, thank you.
Others have gone through the same thing that we know. Talk a little bit about that. Have you connected with other families who've experienced loss in this fire?
Yeah, there are many. The Ekbo family, Winston and his family are just down the street from us. Praise the Lord, their house is preserved, and yet the extent, the reach of this fire is so devastating, because Altadena, in terms of its value as a neighborhood, I guess, even real estate wise, like it's dropping, and that's really sad. And so they're going to be moving. So, you know, theirs
survived like a postage stamp amongst the rubble. It was like them and their neighbor, and that was it. Because their neighbor stayed and fought the flames.
Yeah.
To the risk of his life.
Which is wild.
So Winston, at the same time we got news of your house, we assumed theirs had gone too, until he went back, like you went back, and his was standing. Now the smoke damage and stuff will be extensive, but that was remarkable, because his neighbor said, no, I'm going to sit here with my little hose and fight.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is, like, we have really dear friends, the Viatoros. They had just moved out of Altadena. Yeah. My sister lived in Altadena, and she had just moved.
Wow, I forgot about that,
Yeah.
And so there was a couple of those where they're looking back, and going, we were there a month ago.
Yes.
And now it's a war zone.
It is so, so sad to see. And I think that just the extent of damage and like you can say, oh, it was just, it's just a house, like just, move on. But at the same time, because you can say that. And even as a believer, like you can say, okay, there's a certain level of, we realize that we don't want to have our earthly possessions as what like is satisfying us or bring us joy, and that when it's taken away, we realize, thank you, Lord, like we want to have open hands and be willing to let go of that. But at the same time, there is a lot that you're going to have to work through in the coming days. Like there's a process that will have to happen because that's just how life has to go on, and you have to figure out what you're going to do. And it was your home. It was your place where you had those memories. And so that's not going to just go away. And then the challenges of like trying to figure out, what do we do now? What do we rebuild eventually once there's clearance to do that, or insurance, all of these things that people are going to have to work through in the coming days. And so there's another level of pressure, not just losing everything that you own, but now the logistical side of it.
Yeah, talk about some of those practical
hard.
considerations that people might not be aware of. Like right now, what are the practical issues that you're walking through?
Yeah, totally. There are definitely those things that you just get overlooked so quickly. I mean, there are things like yesterday just needing nail clippers, needing to go and buy those basic necessities that you only buy once and you keep for so many years, and then realize, wow, that was gone too. Like I said, there's this layering of no matter how many days and weeks go by, there's more and more that begin to come up. And I know there are so many others who have lost their homes just as a recent, maybe even before that can empathize with that reality and seeing, it takes time. I know a friend of mine, Star, had lost her house a long time ago, and that was a part of her own salvation story, which we praise the Lord for. But that was the first thing she had told me was, it's gonna keep going. And that was an encouragement in its own right, because it's this preparation type of encouragement of just be mindful, it'll keep coming. And with everything that I remember was lost, I continue to remember what was given, and that is in the Lord and His Word and in the church family. But the practicals are really like working through insurance takes time. Working to see, to fight for that stuff too takes time. I know there's different, hundreds and maybe 1,000 people making claims and trying to get back what was lost. And even in terms of housing, it is that I've been telling people your present became your past so fast that turning your foot to the future is really hard, and it feels just a literal heavy weight. But it's God's preserving grace to show us His love so saturated in this time, because life does go on, and school did just start for me, and work does continue, and so does life. And so those difficulties, they're there, and they are just that, difficulties. But there has been such a support from the church family that I only pray and hope that people who don't have that could realize and come to faith and knowing that treasure, because it really is a treasure for me to see what has always been there, which is the church alive and active, and yet it's just coming around us like never before with provision, and we need it. And it's hard to say that we need it, but it's a good thing and humbling in a whole new way that I would have never been able to be humbled in, to just receive something, to be given, to take, because you're so mindful of trying to give. And I feel like our family has done that. I've seen it through my own parents. But now it's time to be on the receiving end of it. So it'll take a long time, but.
Yeah, I think that's something that is really beautiful too, because like you said, there's a point where you are able to give, and it's so fulfilling for you guys. Like your parents had us over. And this was the memory I had going through my mind when I heard you lost your home. Because when you guys had us over to your house, okay, let me just say, Dean's parents are incredible. They are gourmet chefs in their kitchen.
The cordon bleu.
Like,
right.
let me just say, I was so impressed with the level of thought and care, and like, I felt like we were at like a 5-star restaurant, like the way that they were preparing everything. And his mom,
The
like,
courses
I
coming
said,
out.
"Oh, can I help you?" I said, "Can I help you?" can I help you like make or like prep the dessert? And she was like, sure, yeah. So she gave me an apron. And then we went in and it was like she had prepared these absolutely delicious desserts. And we were like putting this like powder on. She put so much care and thought into like every little detail of it. And it was like what you guys love to do was to host, to like have Bible studies in your house and all of those things where now you're on the other side of that saying, okay, for this season, there's like your lives are changed in that realm where you aren't able to give in that way. But then those people who you've ministered to for years are able to give back to you. And that has to be, like you said, that challenge of like, I couldn't imagine being in that place of like, you feel so helpless and like you don't want everybody to go out of their way to do things for you. I imagine just because of who your family is and how you love to serve the community and those around you, that to sit and like let other people do things for you just is hard. But at the same time, like you said, it's like this, God allows all of this for a reason to like let us realize our desperation need for him, but then also to allow others to serve your family in this time when they have, such need. And so I think that's the beauty of the body of Christ is that you do get to see it. You hear about it, you know it's there, but then for your family to have that in the midst of such chaos and trial to be able to be served is different. And I feel like I'm crying this entire thing because it's just, it hits you differently. Like, and when you have kids, I'm like, their memories are in these homes. And like my childhood home, when it was torn down for a rebuild and that was hard. And it was something we expected. And
you didn't wake up at 2 a.m.
No, like
and realize, we're going to lose it.
We were sad when that happened.
Yeah.
Even going to watch them tear it down for another setup, it was like really hard. And I think just seeing the level of trust that you guys have had in God has been a huge example to us. And, the Lord knows why he allows these things and we cannot always see. And I think trusting him in the darkness, trusting him in those times where it doesn't all make sense, he will give peace that passes all understanding. And that's something that's been so beautiful to experience and to watch with your family. So,
yeah. And it's those little things too. Like, I know we can have a tendency to over spiritualize things and go, earthly possessions don't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, no, God has made us as people. And like to hear from your dad, for instance, like Ginger's talking about how you guys were so hospitable and it's just in your DNA and you guys love to have people. And I asked you, what are some of the like non-spiritual, like superficial, if you want to put it in a category, things that are really missed by your parents? And you didn't say, yeah, my mom's, Chanel purse, or it was like, well, they miss the capacity to host others. And so they miss their china, or they miss their, the silverware, or they miss the things that allowed them to give us the experience we had when we'd go over of like, oh, wow, we're really welcomed and cared for. And that just screams again of the selflessness and the love and the priorities. But it also tells you, for those who haven't been through an experience like this, which I have not, I've never been in an experience where I've lost everything in a fire, my earthly possessions, of you can't prepare for how it's going to affect you. Like, I don't think if I were to ask you, Dino, like, hey, Dean, theoretically, if you were to lose everything, what would you miss the most? Your answer then probably wouldn't be what it is now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably, what maybe brings you to tears or finds you just daydreaming, as you just stare and are thinking back of what was your present, which is now your past, and thinking, oh man, I didn't realize how affected I was just by having my own bed.
Yeah.
Like to go back to.
Yeah.
And realizing, oh wow, that does something to unsettle me, that I don't have a room or I don't have my own space or whatever. And so the human experience through this is something that I don't know if we can prepare for or understand until you're really walking through it.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot of things like that where, I've shared before where it's like, do you thank God for your shower head? Do you thank him for the creaky floors that you have to kind of bounce around in the morning to not wake up your parents? That one cabinet that never closes right. Do you thank the Lord for those things? And because they'll be missed. They'll be missed. And that's a part of counting the cost. It's the every little detail in that. And you're right. Like, I probably would have said like, oh, my surfboard, I would have missed it.
Yeah.
But I remember a few days after one of those moments, those milestone moments of this journey, just thinking back, oh, there's this one photo. And I remember that night on Tuesday night, kind of packing, getting things together. I can't remember if I put it in this little coin jar or I kept it with me in my bag. And the coin jar's gone. That thing is done and melted. But I ran into where we're staying now, out in Burbank, with this apartment that's been provided to us so graciously. And I checked that same bag that I looked at, and it was there. And it's just this small little 3x. I actually have it in my wallet. Now it's a lot closer now.
You're not going to take it off of your person then?
No, it's all changed. I don't know. The cameras maybe not see, but that's me and my dad.
Oh,
let me see.
That's amazing.
Look.
Oh my goodness! Look at that.
The camera here.
Yeah, I don't
Got
know if
it.
it shows.
Look at. Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah. So it's me and my dad as a little kid.
What a sweet.
And there's a lot more there than people might think, because that cabinet that's behind him was my grandfather's, and praise the Lord, we still have it. My middle brother Grant had taken it.
Wow.
Really?
And they have it now.
No
When he got
way.
married, he took it out to his new home.
Yeah. So we're grateful
Wow.
for the preservation of things like
Yes.
that.
Wow.
Those common graces that aren't common. And but then also my dad loved Christmas. Like he was Saint Nick, and we would host and have people all the time. And he's got the full village set up. He's got the lights on the roof and the outside, and we're that house that literally lights up the street because we pay the electric bill.
National Lampoon's Vacation
That's
comes to
right.
mind.
Yeah.
For real. And that was me eating Christmas beads when I was a little kid right there. And so there's a lot connected to where we have those moments together and have always shared and enjoyed. And so those are those things. Those are the things I tell you after the fact, Jeremy. I would have broken down if I didn't have that. So it makes you realize what you took for granted and what you should have been grateful for, and what you are grateful for. And you have always cherished the most important things in terms of family. It's like, I never would have thought that my house key would be a relic, that there would be no door to put it to. And yet he decided that fit. God decided that fit for us. But there's ways that when he's taken, so much more room for grace, and not just grace, but specific grace has been opened for the Lord to put things back into our lives. And it's come through his church. Like I said, that's where I wish people could see what I'm thinking in this case, is like, that's what I've been feeling inside. And it comes in waves and motions, but to know that people know us so well, to go to that extended length, like you guys even did, and getting us some new china that, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we can be reminded of how the church is caring for us. Others, buying me a pillow that I lost.
Your favorite pillow.
My favorite pillow.
Like, those things matter.
Yeah, my neck hurts so
They
bad.
do. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Dean. Those things matter. They do. Because it's like it's the little comforts, right?
Ginger
Yeah.
would be saving her a heating pad. That's what she would say. During her pregnancy,
I'm
the most
third
valuable
trimester.
player for her pregnancy has been this
I
heating
travel
pad.
with it. I'm like an old lady. So
I'd have
Stick
some
you in the
books,
car.
probably. I'd have, some, and she'd have her heating pad.
and my pillow.
That's right.
Picky about my pillow.
That's so funny.
I hear you.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the key is seeing, those big things that are big and still are, but even sentimental. So that whether they're cards and letters, the Lord still knows how to replace them, because those same people who wrote them in the past for those milestone moments then write them again now for the milestone moments now, showing how much they love and care for our family, and still are there for us, and are there even more than ever before. And so, there's different tears that get shed that the Lord uses to begin to sanctify and grow us and soften us.
Okay, so we've traveled a good bit recently because of Ginger's book, and we were in New York City, and when people would find out that we were from LA, so we were sitting next in the Brooklyn Bagel and Coffee Company. I'm sitting there eating my East Coast bagel, and we
You
said,
were wearing a jacket.
oh, I was wearing a jacket, and it had California on it, and the woman next to us said, are you guys from LA? I said, yeah, we are. And it was like question after question after question. And then we were sitting at dinner. the night of your book release, they heard us talking or they asked.
And like 3, waitresses
they
came
all
up and
come
they just,
surround the table.
surrounded and wanted
They're
to
asking
ask.
questions. Who started the fire? What do you think about this or that? And one of the things they keep asking is, so you're going to leave LA? Or, are people going to leave California? So after this, are you guys going to rebuild? Are you leaving California? Talk about where that starts, your mindset, because people see this exodus from California and they see all the problems. And we get that question all the time.
For sure. We're not sure yet. It's been up for debate. I personally, to respond, have never felt anywhere could be home for me outside of here.
Yeah.
And the church has been a part of that. Grace Community Church has been my home since birth. And I kept telling people before and after the fact that Grace is my home away from heaven. And it really is, because the people there have been that for me. And it's been so continuous. So I'm beyond grateful. And I only see myself moving closer to the church right now.
Yeah.
The physical one I have.
Yeah.
And if the Lord takes us somewhere else, I don't know, it'd have to be through a lot more for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just,
It's going to take more than a fire to drive you out of California.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Dino, thanks for hanging out.
Nice.
I want to remind people, we'll put links in this description, but to help the McMahons directly, a GoFundMe was set up to help them rebuild. And if you're able to give anything, it makes a big difference. We also have a link to our church's emergency relief fund for those in the church who've been affected. There's been at least 10 families who've lost their homes in our church. And then we're providing a link for Los Angeles County. So there are so many needs, and that goes from clothes to places to stay, to affording hotels or Airbnbs, to people's pets being cared for, displaced. I mean, you name it, it's there. And so there's a link here for you to give where you think would be best. But I would encourage you to consider giving how you can. It's, we hear about tragedies all the time. We're constantly inundated with information around the globe. And sometimes we can become numb to that.
Yeah.
But having a friend so affected, loved one so affected,
I think it's so close to
right in
home
front of
just
us.
with that. And it really sinks in, and it makes you think, okay, what do I value and treasure? I want to have, my perspectives in the right place, and then also be able to reach out and help those around you.
And to think like something so insignificant for us, whether it's $20 or, a possession in your home, and you think, wow, this would not affect my life if I lost it, is so significant for people right now who are being affected by these things. And so we'd encourage you to think and pray about ways that you can give. Dino, thank you. Thanks for coming, for being so open, especially because you're still processing this in real time. We're not talking about this 2 years on. What you said about your present became your past, and it's difficult to turn your foot toward the future. You're in that right now. And so thanks for coming on, being so vulnerable. We love you. We love your family. And we're glad you guys are okay.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. God bless you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.